Oh, man, I didn't see that I was looking up there. My bad. Good day, ma'ams and sirs, and welcome to episode 34 of the Number 9 with Tommy podcast. Now that we've gotten that nauseating episode about gratitude out of our way, let's get back to what you expect us to say. Anal bleeding, unwed breeding, booger flicking, hooker licking, what we'd rather, shitter splatter, shots banging, snots hanging, fish markets. Let's get started. Fingernails that make your stomach curdle, origins of popcorn kernels. We ain't talking about snacks to fill your tummy tum when we reference honey buns. Line the bed of your truck with some carpet and park it. If you and the star of the show are going to have an adulterous affair, oh, motherfucker, see? I haven't fucked up a single intro live. Not one. We'll start that. Line the bed of your truck with some carpet and park it somewhere. If you and the star of the show are going to have an adulterous affair. Without a single bit of further ado, I bring to you a man who gets mad when my cell phone goes off and loves to interrupt with a cough whenever I talk. A man whose hands are nearly as big as Dip Dizzy whistles, and who eats peanut brittle and Skittles faster than LeBron James can dribble. It's motherfucking Chunk Dizzle. Tom fucking Washington, what's been up, man? How are you?
Yeah, I was good until you read that intro.
Man,
and
so
I just realized how much editing I'm gonna have to. When this is over, I'm gonna make you re-record that, I think. So I can put it in.
Ooh, I like that, because then it doesn't matter that I fucked up live. Let's do it. I can do that.
I don't know. It's going to be hard to fix.
It would help if I proofread it once or twice after I wrote it.
Yeah, instead of yelling at me for not even reading it, you thought I was reading it?
I can't have you know what's coming next.
Yeah, okay.
It's unacceptable.
Anyway, I'm excited, Pat. We got a special guest today.
We're going to
introduce him after mail time. So you want to get right to it? We'll get right into the mail.
Let's do it. So, Michael, who still has not been introduced, what's happening right now is Tommy has paused the actual podcast. We're still live on YouTube, so everybody can still see and hear us, but he's making the podcast that's going to go out tomorrow morning. So he's entering an intro, which is like the Blues Clues theme song for mail time. But we can't do that on YouTube because it's copyrighted. So we do it.
No, this I can play on YouTube.
Okay. Some things we can't play on YouTube, but he cuts these clips in while we're still live. So everybody else is used to that.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Pat, we got one piece of mail this week, and you're going to have to explain it to me because I don't get it.
Yeah.
It comes in from wrong screen.
Comes in from the wrong screen.
I got this message the other day in the email. It just says, "Tell me more, Danny."
Yeah, so I didn't know that you got that message because I don't have our fan mail to my phone. I have it to my tablet, and I don't carry my tablet at work. So it's 2020, and things can't really go at the rate they're going. If we have 2021 the same rate, everybody's dead by the end of the year. So I get a text message from Tommy. In the text message, all it says is, "Do you know someone named Dan Terrell?" And I went, fuck. I thought you had read something and just been like, well, he's the same age as Patrick and they're both from Thomaston, so he obviously knows him. I thought Dan died.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, motherfucker, dude. So I texted Tom back and was like, yeah, he was the best man at my wedding. As I'm like, I'm at work, I'm just like, it's okay. Like, don't freak the fuck out. And then you're like, oh, he responded to the podcast. I was like, motherfucker, dude. I was like, Jesus. So Tommy in 2020 tried to kill off the best man at my wedding.
I didn't try and kill him off. I was just curious if you knew who he was.
Oof. So I called him and I told him.
And I knew that Danny was the best man at your wedding. I didn't know Danny's last name. I've only met him once or twice.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, given if I would have known you back then, I would have been the best man at your wedding.
Or at least had a name tag that said so.
Well, I definitely would have done that. That's tacky and not likable.
Wow, that's hurtful. Yeah, so I called Danny and I told him the story and he was like, yeah, I was fucking tanked, man. I knew that the number 9 thing was yours and I didn't know that it was just like a newsletter. So I wanted to participate, but I didn't know what you were asking. So I just wrote back that I needed more info.
Love it.
So apparently Danny T got too drunk to read. That's where we were at.
I like it. So that's our only mail for this this show, I want to remind everybody you can go to number 9podcast.com. And at the bottom of the page, you can subscribe to our email list, which we're going to be sending out probably weekly, maybe twice a week, with questions for the show. Pat, I think, has a new question for this week.
It's going to be easier than last week's question, since last week question somehow was a stumper.
Yeah, it wasn't a good one. Anthony's in the chat. He says he's champing at the bit to hear Michael.
Michael, can you see the chat? You're not on Facebook. You're not on YouTube right now.
Just nod for us if you can see the chat.
So that's not a nod. Well, Tony is on the chat. Tony's live on via text message on YouTube.
I believe it's on the left side of your screen, sir. For if you're looking at us. Anyway.
Oh, now you can see it. Okay.
All right. So, yeah, so go to number9podcast.com, go to the bottom of the page, subscribe to the email list. You can also donate to the podcast on the bottom of any page on the website. The subscribe button is at the bottom of the homepage. You can also hit us up at Twitter at number9pod, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all the same, number 9 with Tommy podcast.
Well played,
anything you want to add?
No.
Please email in some feedback or some questions.
Yeah, answer the damn weekly question.
My wife sends in all kinds of stuff to the show, which I believe on Thursday.
Dizzy Wizzle gives us all kinds of feedback?
Yeah. I think Thursday's show, we're going to do a bunch of stuff that Eric, a bunch of news articles that Erica sent in.
Yeah.
Should be a good time. All right.
So, Michael, Tommy is putting the outro to Mail Time, and then I am going to do your intro. Similar style to Tommy's intro, where there's just a bunch of ridiculous rhymes. I'm basically like Pat in the Hat.
Pat in the Hat.
You like that? That's pretty good.
All right. Ready?
I'm ready. Is Phobic Squirrel in the chat?
No.
I can't see. All right. Since Tom's not going to tell me to introduce our next guest, I will do it.
Okay.
Okay, Tom's deleting that. Did not like it. And
Pat, we have a special guest on the show. Why don't you go ahead and introduce him?
It would be my pleasure. Thank you, Tommy. This guy is what Tupac spoke of when he referenced the rose that grew from the concrete. We're more proud of him than he'll ever know, and you can hear it whenever our mom speaks. He's partied harder than Farley, drank more tiger's blood than Charlie, and flown higher skies than Marley. He would have qualified as a Golden Gloves boxer if he ever stepped inside the ring. If you ever got in a spat and needed some back, this is the guy you would bring. Then he put his fist down and picked up a good book and went on a search for himself, a journey that released all his demons and started him dreaming of how he'd get out of his hell. After some pretty rough surgery, he'd purged all the uncertainty and found him a path with some promise. He'd work on a farm and make enough money until he could get him some knowledge. With his passion for people and his work ethic lethal, he blew right through years of college. Since then, he's found him a hella fine wife, and they settled down nice. And they recently bought a new, holy fuck. Since then, he found him a hella fine wife, and they settled down nice with a recent new home that they bought. With 2 beautiful children, his constant reminder of the payoff and how hard he had fought. You see him in their eyes, and of course, no surprise, it turns out my brother's a hero. He wears scrubs, not a cape and a suit. Takes the next patient from his waiting room. Thankless, the line is eternal, so it might seem, joins us today in his rare time away from fighting COVID-19. Michael fucking Gallagher, what's been up, man? How are you?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Not too bad.
Good.
I'm sorry that I can't read, bro. Sorry.
We got some great chat going on right now.
What happened? Let's see it.
Anthony chimed in and said that you're not, to your Pat in the Hat comment, he said you're fat in the hat. And Michael chimed in and said we may want to pre-record these intros.
So Tommy broke my balls about intros for the first 30 episodes. We started going live, and I've never fucked one up until today. I fucked both of them up.
Yeah, it's been bad.
It's brutal.
I'm just glad that people can see it live that you do suck at doing the intros.
Yeah, but you're like, oh, he fucks up 30 times. I fucked up once on each of them, maybe twice on each of them.
Yeah.
No longer a rumor, Patrick.
What do you say?
All right, what'd you say?
You sucking on these intros is no longer a rumor.
Yeah,
Oh, wow,
it's facts.
That's hurtful.
Mason says first time every time.
Hi, Mason. How are you, you fucking asshole?
Yeah. So, Michael, I want to thank you for joining us today. I know that you rarely get a day off. You had mentioned to me before the show that that by the end of the year, you're going to work 340 days-ish this year. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's been a lot, but there's been a lot of need in the hospital this year, as everybody knows. So hopefully next year will be a lot different, and I won't have to work so hard.
So are they not giving, like, you don't have an option to take any time off at this point, right? Unless you become sick?
No, I mean, when the waves hit, so the hospitals have what's called like an internal disaster system, and there's a couple different phases that each different hospital has like their own methods. And they can, if they were to go to like their highest level, like the hospital I work at, they go to like phase 1. Basically every employee just needs to respond to the hospital and wait for assignments, and you get deployed wherever you're competent to work. We never hit that actual phase this year. We were in like phase 2, which kind of bypasses certain state laws. So they could essentially make the nurses work longer hours and, take more patients, so they increase the ratios between nurse and patient, not just nurses, but all of the healthcare workers. This year, though, with the fact that COVID was so new and we knew nothing about it, and it was extremely scary for all of us. I ended up having to quarantine my house for weeks on end. So it just became like the safest place to be for my family was just to stay at work. And so rather than quarantining in the bedroom at home and hearing my kids down the hall and not being able to interact or embrace them or play with them, it just was easier to stay at work. And so kind of, kept my family safe, but at the same time, there was a great need in the hospital. And so I was able to meet that need as well.
Nice.
God damn.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine having that thought process of I might as well stay at work. It's the safest place for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, I think, like, globally, or I shouldn't say globally, universally, in America anyways, people look forward to the end of their workday. This motherfucker's, the end of his workday doesn't change anything. He's like, all right, I'm done working. I guess I'll just stay right here and fucking take a nap.
So did they have, like, cots and stuff set up for you to sleep in?
No, I mean, there were some places. I mean, we have, like, I'm procedural, so my job actually is in cardiac cath lab and interventional radiology department. We had like a pre and post procedure area, and so I've taken many a naps in there on a stretcher that's available. So I did go home most nights and only sleep at the house, and I would just I'd get home after everybody was sleeping, and I'd leave before everybody woke up.
Yeah.
Do any of those stretchers have like Tempur-Pedic mattresses by any chance?
Yeah, not Tempur-Pedic. But it was in the beginning, I had these vivid visions of my kids being intubated, and because I'd come home and I'd hug them, and then I'd pass on COVID, and then just have these visions of them being intubated in the hospital, and it just shook me to the core.
Yeah.
Knew nothing about this in the beginning. It was scary for everybody.
Now, the experience you just described, where you have these, we'll call it, I hope not premonitions, but visions of you causing your children that kind of pain. Generally speaking, we would refer to that as PTSD. Like, if that's anybody else's PTSD. What is the new term that's being associated? I read an article. I don't recall the term. What's the term that's being now? Doesn't count.
Dr. Z, he does clips, you could probably YouTube it. He has this new term that he's calling it moral injury.
Moral injury. I knew something like that.
Yeah, and we've had this data. It's been out there for a while, even before COVID, and they talk about ICU nurses and ER nurses. They, that we experience the same level of trauma, same level of PTSD as a soldier on the front line of war. essentially because we're going into this profession. We have our ethics and our ideals kind of set in place, our morals, and then we go to work thinking that we're gonna, that we're answering this call, something higher. This, it's something bigger than ourselves, and so it's this kind of higher power calling. And then you get there, and you realize sometimes you're not doing what's best for the patient. You're doing what's financially best for the hospital, or for your country, and people get hurt because of it. And you see things that you're not, the normal average human being is not supposed to see.
Yeah.
And it damages you. It damages your morals. So you have this moral injury, and it's one of those things, if you're not subconscious about it, if you're not constantly watching it, it could cause so much damage that it's irreversible, irreparable damage that it'll just transform your life in a very negative way.
Sure. It could easily change your calling into your job, right?
Well, the one thing that once gave you life can now give you death, and it's similar to what we saw with Dad in the military. He came home from war, or not from war, but wherever he was at, and because he did not heal that part of him, or wasn't conscious about it, he then took that out on us.
Right.
So, we're seeing that same thing with healthcare workers now. It's like, if people aren't getting right with what's going on in the hospital today, they're coming home and taking that out on their families, or they're drinking themselves to death. Or, what we've seen in 2020 is an increase in drug overdoses in healthcare workers, and also suicide. Like right now, healthcare workers have the highest number of suicides in our country.
That was actually my next question.
Yeah, and it's just wrecking people's worlds.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking brutal. Now, I totally, because, I'm a genius, I totally know what cardio, cath, and what was the other thing that you do?
So interventional radiology.
Yeah, I know what both those things are, but Tommy is a little behind. If you want to explain it to him so that he knows.
Yeah. The cardiac cath lab, this is where if somebody comes to the hospital having a heart attack, we run them into our cath lab. It's where we take catheters and wires, and we go through like a artery, either in the wrist or in the groin, and we go up to the heart, and we actually balloon open the coronary artery. We place a stent, and sometimes we have to do something like a ventricular assisted device or balloon pumps, but essentially we reperfuse heart muscle. Interventional radiology is very similar to that, except instead of the heart, it's for the brain. So people coming in having an acute stroke, we can actually now go in, it's called a thrombectomy, where we actually go and retrieve the clot out of the patient's brain and reperfuse the brain tissue so they can, essentially recover, hopefully fully. So we do both of those procedures in my area.
Wow.
Yeah. I've never seen someone have an acute stroke. I saw an adorable stroke once, but I think that's different. That's so you deal with I'm going to call it the two most important parts. I guess you could debate like spine is up there as well, but the brain and the heart, huh?
Yeah, everything is very fast paced, very critical, and typically always life threatening. So it happens very fast. You have to really be okay with the rapidly changing environment. You have to be very flexible and willing and able to adapt quickly. Some of the things that, I come from the ICU. I grew up in the ICU. That's my background, critical care medicine. But the big differences in cath lab and ICU is, in ICU, you kind of can see that your patient's sick, right? You can predict that your patient's going to go into cardiac arrest, or they're going to code. And, essentially you have your entire team there. You have an intensivist on standby. You have all your medicines ready to go. You're prepared. You're never really caught off guard. But in cath lab, whether that patient's coming in for an elective angiogram, or if they're coming from the ED on the, rushed in by ambulance, every patient's at the same level of risk. And we have more, we basically have a huge success rate in cath lab. So our patients a lot of times come in there if they go into a cardiac arrest, something like that, it's a lot of times it's unpredictable. You don't see it coming. And so we treat every patient. We respect the fact that what we're doing presents a high level of risk for every patient, not just the sick patient. So we typically try to be proactive and ready for it. But in cath lab, and what's different in an ICU is in cath lab, every code that we see, it tends to be an absolute mega code. And what I mean by mega code is we throw everything we have at the patients. Sometimes our patients are in their 20s, they're very young, because we're seeing these heart attacks happening at a younger and younger age. So especially we have young patients with a lot of viable life in their future, we will just throw everything we have at that patient and try to preserve life. And so we have sometimes these very long and exhaustive mega codes, which is different than what I used to see in ICU.
When somebody codes, what's that called? Is that like a code blue? Is that a code pink? What do you call it?
Code blue is typically your universal cardiac arrest or respiratory arrest code. Now, code pink typically is like a juvenile or pediatric, so ped, like a child.
Wow, my two guesses were somehow the right answers. Holy shit. So go ahead.
Oh, Mason has a question in the chat.
Let's do it.
He wants to know if the term moral injury excludes the ginger community.
Oh, real fucking nice.
Yeah.
So, Michael, your take on that? You're in the field. Can redheads suffer from moral injury?
Well, especially in cath lab, we're a group of savages. We eat our young there, as the term is in nursing community, which means that we just give everybody a hard time. But certainly if a redhead comes working with us, they're going to experience a much higher level of ball breaking, which certainly results in a moral injury. There's something fun and just necessary about making fun of redheads. And, certainly they would be included in that term.
Nice. Well, there's your answer, Mason, you piece of shit.
There's something else you want to ask?
Kind of. About this. So, first off, I'd like to point out that Michael said that the way they get to the heart is either through the wrist or through the
groin.
The groin, which proves my point that I tell anybody that I'm dating the fastest way to my heart is through my penis. And they never believe me. Yeah, but Michael is proving this is 100% unequivocal. It's fact. We have a medical expert saying it. Nice. Michael, how many patients do you see in a day? And to go with that, I mean, a bad day, you lose a patient, or is that kind of normal because you're dealing with them in worst case scenario? I mean, is losing a patient, I don't want to say routine, but is it commonplace?
So it's not necessarily routine in cath lab. I mean, we probably lose, I would say on average, one a month or every other month. So it's relatively low.
Yeah.
We have a high success rate. I mean, we have a really good team. And, we take a lot of sick patients to our cath lab. So the program we have going right now is actually pretty dynamite. Where I do see a lot of death, though, is because I do fill in administrative supervisor. So on the weekends, that's what I was doing yesterday, is, so the other term for it is clinical supervisor, and you're essentially a supervisor over the entire hospital. And so you respond to all emergencies in the whole house, whether it's in the emergency center, in ICU, or it's in our NICU. So there you see a lot of death. And, we're responsible for getting the bodies down to the morgue, releasing bodies from the morgue, so on and so forth. So that actually, it was at one time when it was the week before Maya was born. I had to run a specimen to the lab, and as I walked in this room, I had this little tiny infant on the table, and obviously the infant was a stillborn, and they were essentially performing. They were trying to determine why the baby died. So like I walk in and Patricia is 9 months pregnant. We're waiting any day for Amaya to be born, and like walking to see that. And that's the kind of stuff that will mess with you big time.
Jesus.
Jeez. So, I could never. So death in general, you don't listen to shows, so you never heard this. Death in general kind of freaks me out.
Tommy's really bad at death.
Yeah, it's not really my thing. I couldn't imagine doing what you do on a daily basis. There's no fucking way.
Yeah,
Well, dark humor gets you through it, I guess.
we're proficient in that language.
Yeah.
The idea of, man, it's got to be a very, very specific skill, and you have to be very good at it, I'm sure. But to even just the way you approach the rest of the family. So, okay, so that child died, right? But somebody has to talk to mom and dad at this point, or brothers and sisters, or somebody. And they've had that conversation, maybe 100 times before. So it's got to be incredibly difficult to say, like, we understand that this child was the entire world to you. Even though I've had this conversation many, many times, hopefully this is the only time in your life you'll have this conversation. That's a tough job.
Yep. Yeah. I had, with COVID, it's actually made dealing with families even harder now because, we have actually in my hospital now, we had a family member come in. We were allowing visitation for end of life. Now we have patients in the negative pressure room. So we couldn't let the family in the room with the patient as they were dying, but they could at least like look through the glass and kind of wave and blow kisses if the family member is even aware of what's going on.
Jesus.
But we show up and she was COVID positive, which you have to expect, right? If the husband or wife's in the hospital sick, then you would expect the spouse also to be sick. But we had several nurses get infected from her. So they all contracted from this one family member. So now we've eliminated all visitation, period. So if your family member's in the hospital dying, they're going to die alone. We won't let you in there. And it's 100% because we now have 22 nurses out sick with COVID-19, and we're not able to really staff our hospital appropriately or safely. And so we're getting inundated and overrun. And so as administrative supervisor, we have family members that are constantly showing up, and they are outside of the world of reason. They're hysterical. They're upset with 100% understandable why. And we have to tell them, no, we're not going to let you in. And, you have to have that conversation constantly with a lot of family members, and they typically do not respond well to it.
So let me ask you, so I'm dying in the hospital, okay? We know I'm going to die. And my family wants to be present. Can I say I'd like to check out? Like, I just want to go home and be with my family?
Yeah, there's home hospice. Yeah, I mean, essentially, if you're able to say that, you're probably not dying.
Oh, okay.
These patients at this point when they're getting this sick, they're typically on life support, sedated. But if you're able to express your wishes at that level, then we could set up some sort of home hospice thing, and get you back to your house where you can. But if your family's not sick and we send a COVID positive patient home, now
they're responsible.
Yeah, you can now infect your entire family. And do you really want to go, to your grave, wondering if you're responsible for infecting your kids and your grandkids or your grandparents, for that matter?
Whew.
So somebody that sees the COVID thing every day, obviously, do you agree that like if I were to get it or my son were to get it, the survival rate is much higher than if somebody in their late 60s, 70s, 80s gets it, is much more dangerous for them?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part. And so we don't know enough about COVID. I mean, we know a lot more than we did a couple months ago, but we still don't know a lot. This is what's scary about COVID. And this is what the public has a lot of difficulty understanding. So in the beginning, it was a virus that essentially attacked the elderly, right? So the geriatric community. So if you're 60, 70 plus, you were in the population that we were most concerned about. But COVID's a smart virus, and with all smart viruses, it learns to mutate. So it has mutated over the last year. And we've seen a younger and younger population coming into the hospital. So we went from treating essentially 70 plus year olds. Now we have 20s and 30-year-olds on life support in the hospital. So the virus is mutating. We're also seeing children now getting infected. So that's the part that people when we talk about like mass mandates and people thinking, oh, I'm going to survive this thing, I'm not that worried about it. It's like, well, as of right now, you may survive it just fine. But if this virus mutates again, it may become much more lethal to your population. So that's the part that we're always kind of concerned about and watching out for. The other thing that people, I think, they struggle to understand is CDC released this information not too long, and they said of all the COVID deaths that we've had in this country, there was only like a few thousand that were directly related to COVID, and people, they started kind of saying that these numbers were inaccurate and we were being lied to and so on and so forth.
I remember that all over Facebook.
Yeah. So here's the thing about the way COVID works. It's very similar to the way AIDS works, right? AIDS doesn't kill a lot of people, but there's a lot of AIDS-related death. AIDS, it's a virus. It lowers your immune system, and typically what kills an AIDS patient is an opportunistic infection, maybe like the common cold. So if you didn't have the AIDS virus, your body would be strong enough to combat the common cold. But now that you have the AIDS virus, you die from it. We don't say the common cold killed that person. We say the AIDS virus killed that person, because if they didn't have AIDS, common cold wouldn't have killed them. And that's what we're seeing with COVID. If somebody has hypertension or diabetes, it essentially exacerbates these underlying health conditions to a point where we're no longer able to treat them. So if you came in with hypertension without COVID, it's essentially pretty easy to treat, and we can get you back on the street in no time. But now if you come in with COVID pneumonia and your hypertension, it becomes a very different ballgame for us. It could be almost, obviously very difficult to treat, and in some cases impossible. We're seeing coagulopathies happening from COVID-19. So sometimes the blood in different parts of your body are essentially getting thicker and thicker, and it's kind of churning around, and we're seeing clots being thrown all over the place. So we've seen an increase in pulmonary embolisms because of COVID, and MIs, and even in strokes. And so you may hear somebody say, oh, my uncle died of this heart attack. He didn't die of COVID. Well, yeah, the heart attack's what killed him. However, they developed that clot that went to the heart because of COVID. And so we still consider it a COVID-related death. And that's where you see in this large number of hundreds of thousands of COVID-related deaths in this country.
Wow. Anthony has a question, and I think we should move on with this. That's what we're texting.
I'm texting because your wife sent us a picture for Michael.
Oh. Do you get to say stat a lot each shift? Like, damn it, doctor, give me that scalpel. Scat.
Yeah, actually, I use the word stat quite often. But typically, like, hey, I'm going to take a break, stat. I'm going to sit down.
Right. That's fucking fantastic. What a great question from Tony.
Yeah, I think that was a good one.
I'm surprised he was able to spell that. He probably used spell check.
All right, so we're gonna move on. I know you normally don't listen to the show, but Pat and I do movie reviews every Sunday, Monday show. So I watched the classic Pulp Fiction. Have you ever seen that?
Oh yes, of course.
Do you know why Michael's seen that? Because he doesn't live on the moon in a cave with his eyes closed and his fingers in his ears humming.
Okay, well, we're going to review that. Give me 1 second.
So, Michael, we're only live now. He has paused us so that he can do the movie review intro music.
Oh, it's crazy. That's the only thing I know.
Huh?
I didn't open those for some reason.
Michael, if you can believe this, I still have people today, okay, as recently as yesterday, because I'm not working today, come into work and they see me in a mask and they go, "You wearing a mask for? You believe in that COVID stuff?" Like it's fucking Santa Claus, bro.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. I run into it all the time here. It's easier not to argue with these type of people, you know?
I have not heard the AIDS analogy. That's probably the best analogy over the last 9-10 months that I've heard. That's a wonderful explanation as to how it works.
What was the picture she sent us?
It was nurses walking through a hospital hallway and all kinds of superheroes bowing down to them in gratitude. I sent that picture to Michael a long time ago.
Oh.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. There's
Yeah.
been some really good artistic stuff come out from this. So
I'm not gonna lie to you. I really undervalued nurses before hearing Michael speak. I didn't realize how much they did in a hospital. You always assume it's the doctors doing.
I do not. You know why I never felt that way? Because I never deal with the doctor. Like the nurse comes in, she puts you on the scale, she takes your temperature, she does this, she does that. She puts all this stuff together. Sorry, I'm calling it she. That's so fucked up. They put all this information together, give it to a doctor. The doctor comes in, talks to you for 30 seconds, and it's like, all right, the nurse will be right back in. Like the doctor does fucking nothing.
It's crazy, man. I couldn't imagine what a normal day at work for is you. It's crazy.
Mike, do doctors talk down to you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I often make the joke that there are some doctors out there when they're walking across the graduation stage, they get their medical diploma in one hand, their God complex in the other hand. But I typically, like when I was in ICU, I had a couple doctors who, they would just talk shit, and they would try to talk down patients. And so my go-to, I would a lot people always mistake me for a doctor because I'm a male nurse, right? So they a lot of times will say doctor, and I had this one doctor. He was in the room with me, and the patient addressed me as doctor, and I said, "Oh no, I'm not your doctor. If you however, if you get a headache and you need some Tylenol, we'll call your doctor for an order." I said, "My name's Michael, and if somebody needs to run in here and save your life, I'll be your nurse today." And so and I say that right in front of the doctor and stuff just to give him a hard time, but essentially that's the truth. We have a lot of doctors I work with who are very hands-on, and they do a lot that your average doctor doesn't do, and it's always humbling, and it's always an honor to work with these types of physicians. But there are those who they really take the title to their head instead of to their heart. And,
I can see that easily. I mean, really, like I guess in the workplace compared to the hospital, the doctor's really just like the manager, right? And you have all these people doing the work for the manager, and you have managers that oftentimes work side by side with those people.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the doctors are, they're overwhelmed and inundated just like the rest of us. I think doctors right now is like the number one profession for divorce rates. It's like the highest, and suicide. They're up there too. So, the doctors are having to manage care for a lot of patients. And that's why it's like, if the doctor really trusts the nurse and they have a good relationship with that nurse and they listen to the nurse and work with that nurse, they actually become a better doctor because of it. When they try to do that and they don't listen, that's when people get hurt.
It's crazy. I just want to read Mason's last comment.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on.
Yeah. Well, did Erica say something too? I swore I saw her name
earlier. Now that you made the AIDS analogy, Patrick will believe he can't get COVID because he thinks he's immune to STDs. He said STIs, but I know what he meant.
That's sexually transmitted infections.
Yeah.
So, Mason, it's not that I believe that I'm immune to STDs and STIs. I am 100% sure of this. There's no way with the laundry list of dirty women that I've slept with that I shouldn't have gotten something by now. I'm not able to get it. That's where we're at.
Or you've already contracted all of them, so you have herd immunity for all the STIs.
That's right. Or I don't go deep enough to catch it. Maybe you have to go past a certain inch mark, and I don't make it.
Yeah, you've never been accused of going deep enough, have you?
No, maybe that's what it is.
Erica just said that the stream in the chat looks a lot better today because we fixed the problem from Wednesday.
I don't think that's what she's saying. I think what she's saying is there's one good-looking Gallagher in the family, and that's why the stream in the chat looks better today.
Steven looks good. I would say you're the only one that's not good-looking.
That's fucked up, bro. No, look, Michael's like, he's like a normal size, right? He's not skinny. He's not fat. He looks very healthy. He looks muscular. He's toned. He's not fucking bald. Like, this is bullshit. This is absolute bullshit.
Well, I can't tell if he's bald. He has a hat on.
He's got like the sexy actor 5 o'clock shadow going right now. Fuck you, Michael. Fuck you.
I do have a full head of hair. The hairline has climbed a little bit over the last couple of years, but it's still a full head of hair.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It happens to all of us.
Yeah.
By the time I'm 40, I'll have no hair left. Anyway.
So, like, when you're in your 30s and 40s, like, the high forehead line is, like, it's a good look. You can't pull it off in your 20s.
Right.
But in your 30s, it's extinguished. So you're like, it looks good.
Maybe. All right, so I watched Pulp Fiction Wednesday after the show. Pat was supposed to stick around and watch with me. He did not.
Hold on. Tom was like, hey, do you want to watch Pulp Fiction? I was like, absolutely. He was like, all right, give me 10 minutes to wrap this up. I'm like, no problem. I go upstairs. He comes up 15 minutes later. He's like, hey, you ready to watch the movie? I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, give me 15 minutes to do this. I'm like, I'm out. I'm done. Because I don't know what that 15 minutes is going to lead to.
It wasn't 10 minutes, dude. I was down here for like another 3 minutes. I came upstairs and I was like, we're going to watch this? And you said, yeah. I said, all right, give me 15 minutes to get everything uploaded.
It felt like an eternity without you.
Anyway, so I watched it. Erica tried to watch it when she fell asleep. This is my review on it.
Oh, hold on. Did you IMDb to see what the rating was?
No, it's
right,
like it's high though.
It.
It's like I think it's 8.6 or something like that. So I thought the movie was good-ish. The one part in the movie where the boss's wife
overdoses in the living room.
Yeah, and right before that, when Vinny Vega shoots up, I can't handle it, dude. I cannot handle that type of shit going on in front of me.
Pulp Fiction's an 8.9 on IMDb.
I told you it was high.
That's the highest one we've done, huh?
Probably. Yeah, when she shoots or when she snorts that heroin,
yeah,
and I wanted to puke. And when he shoots up, wanted to puke. That's why I never, because I've seen those scenes before.
Yeah,
that's why I've never watched it, because I thought the whole movie was like that, and I can't handle that type of shit, dude. I'm not into seeing people do drugs, especially heroin. Not my thing.
Okay, so let's turn your focus. What do you think of the dialogue in the movie? The foot massage, the burger, the milkshake, all these conversations.
I don't really get what, like, your whole $5 burger thing. Like, I don't know what you saw so great about that.
Because there's two hitmen, right? They're holding guns to these college kids. And all Samuel Jackson can focus on is he's heard about this burger, but he hasn't tried it.
That's not where the $5... That's not where that comes from, though.
That's where the burger is. The $5 milkshake is when Travolta's on a date with his...
Yeah, but he doesn't... He just says, oh, it's a good burger. That's all he says.
Yeah, whatever. So then the $5 milkshake.
Yeah.
It makes a very...
they're real people, Pat.
Outlandish movie, right? It brings it back and humanizes it, and it's fucking hilarious. Like, what would a hitman's focus be if he's, I guess, used to his job? You know, like when you have just done it for so long that... you know, it doesn't bother you anymore, or that there's no adrenaline rush anymore. So this guy's standing in front of this kid, and he's like, "I try that burger." He's like, "That's fucking awesome, dude." What about when Travolta accidentally shoots the dude in the back seat?
I was just gonna say that. That's probably the funniest part of the whole movie.
I fucking love that scene.
Because they make him leave with him, and then he fucking actually shoots him, and the fucking mess it makes in the car is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a good movie. I don't know if I'd ever watch it again because of those scenes, because it grosses me out to the highest.
I like that. I like that those two scenes got you, but Bruce Willis taking it in the rape dungeon with no problem for you. You're over there fucking firing off knuckle children to it. That's cute.
That was fucked up too. I forgot about that.
No, don't bring it up now.
Bruce Willis didn't take it. The black guy took it.
Ving Rhames?
Yeah, he took it, and then. But that because he came back and saved his life, which kudos to Bruce Willis, dude. I would have left him. For real, dude. He was going to kill me anyway. I would have left him.
That's fair.
But, yeah, I thought all in all it was good.
Where are you rating it?
I'd put it... Now, this is just a personal preference, right?
Yeah.
Because of those scenes.
8.9 is very, very high.
I'd put it at like a 7.5.
Okay, that's fair.
What would you rate it at, Michael?
I mean, I'd give it like an 8.5. I think the one thing that made Pulp Fiction so good is this is like the first legit time we experienced Samuel L. Jackson in a movie. He had done some things prior to, and like some small stuff, but this is like the first time we ever get a sense of this like dark humor, the F-bomb being dropped every other word, and it's just kind of everybody's like blown away by it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, now I'm quite a bit younger than you guys, so I think
You guys, my ass. You're 4 years younger than me, bro.
yeah, it's quite a bit. So when this movie came out, I was like 5 years old. So
All right.
I was watching Freddy Krueger and Friday the 13th at 5 years old. So
yeah, Tom doesn't watch horror movies. Anyway,
Yeah.
That's true.
it's not because I'm scared of them. I just don't like them. Wink face. So,
I'm not.
Michael, is there a movie that you would recommend us to watch that you think we may have never seen?
Yep, True Romance.
Michael, is there a non-homosexual movie that you would recommend for us to watch? Did you say True Romance?
True Romance is the first movie that was directed by Quentin Tarantino. It has a diversity of actors who at the time weren't that big, but then later on you'll start seeing all these people. I mean, Brad Pitt's in it, Tony Soprano's in it. It's got Christian Slater in it, Patricia Arquette. It's got Christopher Walken in it. It's got Anthony Hopkins in it. It's got a ton of people that were at the very beginning of their career. And the movie story in and of itself has Christian Slater. He basically accidentally steals a suitcase of cocaine that belongs to the mafia. He meets up with this girl that they fall in love and get married, and it's essentially the mafia goes after them. They want the cocaine back. And the whole movie is them trying to make it across country to California to try to sell the cocaine to run away to Mexico to live together forever. And so it's just fast paced. It's got the love story in it, but it's got a ton of violence in it. Just a lot of really cool stuff. Val Kilmer's in it. Balky was in it. Strangers.
Well, you had me at Christopher Walken. I will gladly watch True Romance.
I'll watch it as well.
Yeah, he's got this scene where they're torturing Anthony Hopkins, and it's some of his best acting ever is in that scene.
All right, I'm in.
I'll make a deal. I'll watch it, but you have to listen to our review of it.
All right, fair enough.
So if you download all the episodes of the podcast, and then you'll have to listen to episode 36 to get that review, which will be a week from today. Episode 36.
I still have, so I got Pulp Fiction. I realized I never watched Idiocracy.
I don't think you're going to make it through Idiocracy. I'm being serious.
Why is it? Do they shoot a lot of heroin in it?
No. It's because it's really well done for the idiot part. And it's like, don't get me wrong, it's a decent movie, but it's hard because they're so good at it. It's like watching you ever watch The Fighter?
Yeah, it's a great movie.
All right, so Christian Bale's role in The Fighter.
Oof. The whole time?
He makes me not want to watch the movie because he's so fucking good at playing that role that I'm like, this piece of shit. William H. Macy does it on Shameless. Whenever he's on Shameless, Frank Gallagher, I'm like, this show's fucking stupid because he's so good.
You don't like that show?
I hate William H. Macy on that show because he's so fucking good.
That's the whole point of why you watch the show, dude. He's hilarious.
It drives me nuts, dude.
He's a piece of shit, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, I do like the show. My awesome. Least favorite parts always involve him.
You're crazy. So I gotta watch that, Reservoir Dogs, and I still have to watch Godfather 2 and 3.
Are you listening to the movies that Tom's never seen, bro?
He's had me watch movies that came out when I was a child.
Are you reading the what's going on in the chat? Michael's distracted.
Oh. Anthony said True Romance is great, so we're going to ignore the fact that Tom said that correctly the first time. Idiocracy. Listen, I'm taking speech class for this. Michael, a couple shows.
That movie where they started watering the crops with Gatorade?
Yes. Yeah. That is that movie.
So Michael, you don't watch or listen to the show often. A couple shows ago, I wasn't able to say Idiocracy. Like, for real. Couldn't say it. But I got it down. I went to my speech therapist, and she helped me out.
I'm glad that you've grown since that last episode.
What was the one you couldn't say at work? Tom tried to say something at work. Like, it was probably 15 minutes. Legality. Dude, it was so fucking... He was on the phone with somebody, a customer. And he was like, it's not about that. It's about the legal... You know what I'm trying to say.
No, I said, you get it. I got that from Pat McAfee. You get it shit. I say that all the time. You get it.
It's so fucking funny.
All right. So that's going to close out movie time.
Yep.
We should stop that. There you go.
Michael, again, we are live, but we are not recording the podcast because he's putting the movie time outro now. The intro is Breakfast at Tiffany's, the chorus, and the outro is Californication, the Red Hot Chili Peppers song.
Those are copyrighted, so I cannot play them on YouTube.
So Tom's looking up because he has a big screen above him that is what he has our outline on. I'm going to send you a picture of it right now so you can see what's going on over here.
Yeah, this podcast is legit. All right, you ready to... Yeah, I want to take a minute and just remind everybody, if you guys want to follow us, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all at Number 9 with Tommy Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Number 9 Pod, or go to our website, number9podcast.com. Go to the bottom of the page and subscribe to our email list. We are going to have a weekly question in there to help you guys contribute to the show. Hopefully this one's funnier than the last one.
Oh, the question?
Yeah.
Do you want me to drop the question now?
Oh, sure. Why not?
All right. I'm going to drop the question. I think we could get away with, because Michael got fucking questions fielded from all over the internet.
Yeah, we don't have to do the questions.
Yeah, like we're way long, which is great because we can save Grind My Gears, we can save Silver Lining, we can jump down to the questions for our guest. Before we do that, let's go with the weekly question. So what you're going to get in the newsletter is, what is your most outrageous holiday memory? And I mean, feel free to manipulate that question however you choose. It could be funny, it could be awful, it could be, not outrageous. It could just be something that means a lot to you. Whatever. What's something that stands out for the holidays?
And we also want to have some meat and potatoes to the story. So it's don't email back and say grandma shit on the table. We want to know why grandma shit on the table.
We want to know if there was corn in the shit.
Yeah.
Do you have an outrageous holiday memory, Tom? You can't use the one you used last week where you went and surprised your brother, because that's already been used.
That's the only one.
Oh, all right.
That's the only thing I do for holidays. Surprise my family members.
All right. I had a girlfriend who she asked me to bring her children to Thanksgiving with her family because she was going to be working. So she was going to meet us there after the fact, right?
This is a girlfriend?
Yeah. Yeah. One who we will not name.
Oh, okay. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So I bring the children to meet her family. Now, I have met like two people in her family. I've met like her mother and her stepfather. And like, I don't think anybody else in this house is fucking packed. I mean, there's cousins, there's aunts, there's uncles, there's just everybody under the sun is that. And it's extremely uncomfortable for me. Luckily, children, as both of you know, provide you with this like escape, right? Like you can just hang out with them and nobody thinks anything weird. They're like, oh, cool. He's getting along with kids. Instead of like, why isn't he talking to the adults, or why is he so weird? So we sit down for Thanksgiving dinner. She still has not showed up because she's still held up at work. So her mom is like, Patrick, what we do is we go around just like any other family. We talk about what we're grateful for. But because you're new, we have a thing where you kind of have to tell us about yourself, start earlier in life and just kind of get to where you're at now so that we all know you a little bit better. So I do this. and I try to nail it, man. I got to take this fairly seriously. I've never met any of them, so I go through like what I do at work. I go through how I ended up there, and blah 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 blah. I say what I'm grateful for, and they all just start eating as soon as I'm done, and I'm like, do we go to the right or to the left? And she's like, oh no, we don't really do that. Thank you though. And I was like, fuck.
That's awesome.
Got me good.
At least she has sense of humor.
Yeah. Michael?
I have a fond memory we can talk about. What's not really a fond memory. It doesn't really have to do with a holiday. There's more of a birthday.
That's a holiday.
Yeah, those are interchangeable.
Okay. So the one that comes to mind is Grandma's birthday party down in New York.
Hold on, Michael, hold on. Anybody listening to Michael tell the story of my grandmother's 75th birthday party, please also watch the live chat because Tony was there as well. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so I had brought my my girlfriend Yolanda, Mexican at the time, down to this party, and of course, every girl you date for a while, like that's always going to be the one. You're always like, I'm going to marry this one. You're the honeymoon phase there. So we go meet with all the New York family at this restaurant, and that was basically mistake number one. But Dad's going to be there, so that's mistake number two. So the first thing he says to her when I introduce them is he starts with a joke, and he says, what do you tell a girl with two black eyes? And she says nothing. She says what? And he goes, nothing. You've already told her twice. And so this is a joke that he says as they're meeting for the very first time ever.
Yeah, that's actually a really good explanation of what it's like to meet our father right there.
Yeah.
He's a
if you
great
remember, there was some issues with the I think Tony paid with like $100 bill or something like that, and like they didn't bring the money back, or there was like some issue with the money. So anyways, we kind of started breaking out with this big scuffle, and next thing you know, the entire kitchen staff like runs out. It unloads the whole kitchen. Everybody runs out there, and it's just kind of us and Dad.
That is completely accurate.
Yeah, Yolanda's with us, and Dad's starting to call all the kitchen staff wetbacks. And of course, if you remember,
Jesus,
that is also factual.
Oh my God.
One sense I'm ready to throw down, the other sense I'm completely embarrassed and trying to apologize for him. And at some point in time, things started getting thrown and whatnot, and we ended up having to. I think cops got called.
Oh yeah, the cops definitely got called.
And it was at a pretty nice, high-scale restaurant. I mean, this wasn't, some McDonald's or something.
Yeah, no, we were with that. First off, yes, that was a very exclusive restaurant. Second, that was the second trip in a row that I was asked by the police to leave a family event. The one previous to that was so Grandma, who was turning 75 for that occasion, her late husband had just passed away, and we got thrown out of his funeral by the police. So my father is on this wonderful track record of getting us thrown out of fairly fancy affairs.
Maybe it's you guys, because I went out to dinner with him and you one time, and we didn't get thrown out.
That's because our waitress was probably a single white person who was not homosexual. I mean, he has a specific group of people that he likes.
Jesus. All right.
That was so Dad that day bounced a penny off of a staff member. I don't know if it was a waiter. I don't know if it was somebody from the kitchen. He bounced a penny off of the forehead of that person and said, "There's your fucking tip." I do remember that.
So yeah. I got a story. I got a birthday story.
Okay, but hold on. Did Tony chime? Oh, he sure did.
He said that track record is called Dad's Life. So this is a lot of it's hearsay, because I'll get into that. So I was probably 11, 12 years old. Mm-hmm. My parents used to throw parties all the time. It was my dad's birthday, so they had a big party outside. Whole family comes over, both sides, and my mom's family gets a little they can party.
Mm-hmm.
So, but my friend that lives behind us in the field, behind the field on the other side of the street there, he had come down and he asked me if I wanted to sleep over. So I was like, fuck it, I'll go sleep over there. I'm 12 years old. I want to hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
So after I left, I guess my uncle and his son, I think, got into a fight in the side yard. Oh, no, you know what it was? One of my uncles showed up. One of my mom's uncles showed up, and he hadn't been invited. Now, mind you, I don't think he lived in Connecticut at the time. He lived in Vermont. He was an alcoholic. I'm not sure that they wanted him here, but he shows up, gets into a fight with some people. Fists are flying out in the front yard. My fucking neighbors, little Twitch boy there.
Yeah.
His parents are out with their kids. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. They're fighting in the yard. They're out there with popcorn watching the fight happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have a lot of good times when I was younger. I wish I still partied like that. I wish I had it in me.
You just heard Tommy reference that person as Twitch Boy. Michael, this guy has the most aggressive Tourette's I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's cannot be ignored, and you do your best to not, not
kind of call him up. I will say this. First off, he is a great guy.
Oh, he's wonderful.
He's a great person. He's a good friend. When I was younger, I remember when I was younger, he would, he's always had Tourette's, right? So we'd be talking or whatever, and we'd be sitting in a group, and he'd be twitching, and I'd be like, dude, cut that out. What the fuck's wrong with you? You know what I mean? But I don't know what Tourette's is.
So fucked up.
You know what I mean? So so as I got older, I figured out what he had. So I remember this time. I'll tell you 2 quick stories. I was living here right when I moved back from Mass.
Yeah.
So me and my dad are out doing the leaves, and Johnny's whatever, and he's doing. Jesus. And little Twitch boy is doing his own little landscaping thing, right? His own little business on the side. So he comes over and he wants to help. So we're raking, and he goes through spurts, right? Where his I don't know what you would want. His trigger or whatever you call it changes, where it's something different. Like his body's going to do something different, but it's always some sort of twitch. So this one, he would twitch forward, kick back, and burp. Right? And I'm talking burp real fucking loud. And so he's helping us rake.
Tony would be disgusted.
So he's raking and he's doing this, and me and my fucking dad are in stitches. And so then he leaves to go get his boy's vacuum truck. So he's gonna vacuum out the leaves for us. And he comes back and he's helping us. And me and my dad are on the deck and watching him do it. And he's doing that we're fucking dying. So later I ask him, I'm like, dude. He's like, he comes over and does it, and I'm fucking laughing. He goes, dude, don't let it fucking hurts when he does it. So then I feel bad. So then I buy my parents' house, right? So I'm here and I got a couple dogs, so I'm setting up dog runners outside, and he comes over and he's helping me. And he's twitching. And he starts doing his twitch. He's up on a ladder, putting one of the things into the tree, like the eye hooks.
Yeah.
And he starts doing, and I'm like, dude, don't twitch and knock your face on that hook that's in the tree and then get knocked out in my yard. Dude, I don't need that life. He's a great kid, though. He's always willing to help.
He is. He's wonderful. When you mentioned him, the only thing I could think of, we had to go pick up a hot tub to put behind Tommy's house. And this motherfucker, somehow, I don't even know how this happened, but we chose him to drive. And
because he had the truck and the trailer.
Holding the steering wheel does not stop him from twitching, apparently. It is very aggressive. I'm sitting shotgun, and he is whipping this fucking truck. It's amazing that he can drive.
Mind you, at the same time, smoking a bowl and drinking a beer.
Yeah.
While he's driving.
Well, while Tommy and I were not smoking or drinking, this is the guy we chose to drive.
And I'm telling, dude, I had to close my eyes on that. Remember, he saw that bumper sticker?
Oh, yeah.
In that car, and literally, it was. I'm not going to get into what kind of bumper sticker it was, but at the time, this was about 4 years ago. It was a political party that he did not like, a person running for president, and he swerved at this lady's car, and he came within inches of hitting that car.
It was not comfortable.
Oh, so bad. Yeah. Great kid.
Well, at least your life choices are consistent, Patrick.
Yeah. I follow a specific path. I go for, is this going to turn into a good story for a podcast one day?
Yeah.
So far, it's worked out. All right, so we want to ask
let's
Michael
let's
these
quick fire
questions.
some questions. Michael, Tommy's going to ask you 3 questions. You are welcome to opt out of any one or all 3 of the questions, but we're going
you
to
are
ask
required to answer them. First one, what's the worst moment of your life?
Worst moment of my life? Yeah, I've actually had a lot of them, man. I think for me, I had a very difficult decade from adolescence to mid-20s. A lot of drugs and a lot of alcohol, a lot of fighting. I moved out to Tucson originally in 2007, and to kind of sober up and get away from this stuff. And then I decided to stay out here and make a life for myself. But there was an event that brought me home to Connecticut that, kind of Tony was involved in it, and on some level Patrick. But there was a moment where we went back to that house on Grove Street, and I just, through the lens of sober lens, I was able to see the impact of the choices I had made, how deeply they impacted not just my brothers, but also my mother, who was with me at the time. And to the point where I almost collapsed on the floor, and realized, how much damage I've caused my family from my life choices. And arguably, like moments later, I had my mom just kind of bring me back to the airport because I needed to leave Connecticut and I wanted to get back to Tucson. And I had gotten on the airplane and I was just kind of living with all that shame. And I had made a decision at that point when I landed in Tucson, I was going to kill myself. And I had come up with the plan and the whole bit. And so that 4-hour plane ride was one of the most sobering and darkest times of my life, and having to live with that. Ultimately, it turned into one of the better moments, because that's really where I kind of started a relationship with God and really started to make true changes in my life after seeing the impact I had caused in other people.
Well, this is the least comfortable I've ever been on the show. What the fuck?
Well, hey, man, I gotta say this.
Oh, God.
So this went through.
Fuck you for asking that question. I don't care which one of us wrote it.
Hold on. Is that the first time?
I've never heard that story before. I will say...
Breaking news on Number 9 with Tommy podcast.
I will say that, Michael, we have a story about that house that is coming up on a future episode. We keep ending up at that house. Tony ended up at that house. Tommy and I have ended up at that house in conversations. And I promise you, this story is going to be a barn burner when we get to it.
It's good.
Oh, my God.
I want to say this to you and Tony. It's amazing the progress you guys have made in your life. And so, mind you, I met Pat in 2007. That's when I met Pat. And I knew very little. Like, I knew that you guys had some issues. Didn't know the extent of them, obviously. But I want to say what you both should be commended. And you guys should be very proud of yourselves that, first off, a family of 5 boys had 2 of them go down a path that wasn't very bright.
Yeah.
And both of them turned their lights around. You know how odd that is?
It's unbelievable. And people, it's so great. I have people like that I'll see at work or I'll see at a gas station. They're like, hey, man, how are your brothers? Because they all they say it and they they cover their chin because they know what's coming. And I'm like, oh, man, they're, this one's this and this one's that. And we're so happy. And, it's wonderful. And they've done this, and this. And they're like, really? What the fuck? Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, no, everything's good, man. They're always blown away.
Yeah,
I love that.
So I think especially Tony. I mean, when I came to Tucson, I ended up kind of meeting who's now my father figure, and I ended up in the Catholic seminary for a couple years studying to be a priest, and I had access to therapy, and I had I just had so much support and so many opportunities that came from that have really helped me turn my life around. But really, Tony stayed in the darkness and was able to grow from that. And that's really the exception here and then becoming basically a single father and having to raise his daughter and not having that good example and just basically doing that all of his own instinct and love for his child. That to me is inspiring.
What a humble son of a bitch.
Yeah, right. All right. So, how about the best moment of your life?
Wait, hold on. Is there any new chat? Michael has fucked my world up. I want to be clear. I am not over that story, and I'm not sure that that's going to happen today.
Well, man, you should look at it as a good thing.
No, because I almost threw up on the fucking podcast.
Why, man?
That was not an easy thing to hear, bro.
It's not an easy thing to hear, but you should be happy that he's at peace.
We might change this question moving forward to what's the second worst moment of your life?
See, man, you always look at the negative. I hear that as a positive story. He saw the trouble that he had caused, and look at where he is today. At least he used it as motivation to make change.
Yeah. I'm glad that is not a road we ever had to go down.
Yeah, jeez. All right. So, what's the best moment of your life, Michael?
Honestly, not to sound cliche, but I'll go ahead and be cliche. I mean, the day I got married was probably the most fun, and I would say it's a hard tie with the day that Kian was born. The day Kian was born was probably the most healing day of my life, because for years and years, with our dad, I never thought that I could ever be a dad, and I never thought I could be a good husband. And so that was actually part of like why I left the Catholic seminaries. I healed a lot of those areas through therapy, and I realized that I would be a good father and a good husband. So the day I got married was like that day where I've realized that I could just wholeheartedly, with every fiber of my being, love another person. But the day Kian was born and to hold him in my arms is just a moment that it just changes you dramatically when you're holding your child in your arms. And it's just kind of like, people say they look back and they're like, oh, I understand the mistakes my parents made. I think, and I was scared to have a boy first. I actually wanted a girl first because I was afraid I was not going to be able to be affectionate and loving with a boy. I thought there was going to be some like wall with our childhood. But actually, right away, I don't know if I could have been more affectionate with him. And, that to me was like, that moment there is like when some people say, understand the mistakes my parents made. For me, that's when I lost any ability to understand my dad, because I was like, how could you ever, ever, ever do to us? Like, I could never even imagine having the ability to do that to my own son. And that feeling is kind of what I felt when they put him in my arms. And it just changed everything for me. And it also was the best day, because that's when I realized that there was like a genuine change in me, and like I wasn't my dad.
Nice. Yeah, it's way easier to listen to. Way easier.
All right, our last question. What's the most embarrassing moment you can remember?
Oh man, there's so many. But the one at my embarrassing moment. I guess I had just gotten this job at Country Grocer in Thomaston, and we didn't grow up wearing nice clothes. We just kind of grew up wearing the jeans and a t-shirt, but I was a bagger and this is my job, and I was taking this thing seriously, man. So I had a nice dress shirt on and a tie, and I was making an impression. But I wasn't very good at tucking my shirt in because I never was used to it. So I had to pee. And so I ran to the bathroom, pee before my shift started, and I tried to utilize the convenience of a zipper. But I wasn't very good at it, apparently, because I didn't pull out far enough, and I ended up peeing all over my leg. And so I had to make a decision at that point. I had just all the way down my leg, and it was very obvious. And I was starting my shift, but I couldn't work my shift with piss all over myself, so I had to go home. So I came up with this elaborate story about how the sink overflowed on me, and I was leaning up against it looking in the mirror, and I didn't notice it was overflowing, and I poured water down my leg, And so I had to run from the bathroom. If you guys remember Country Grocer, I had to run around the back and down the aisle, and there was a bunch of people in the store, and I've got piss all down my leg, and I got to run up to the counter there where the managers were sitting, and I got to convince them that I just flooded the sink all over myself, and I had to go home and change. And they believed it, but nobody knew it was urine. But it did not matter. I was just as embarrassed.
What are the fucking... first off, that's hysterical. Absolutely hysterical.
Hold on, time out.
What are the fucking odds that Michael and Tony both told stories about pissing themselves?
Hold on, more importantly here is that Michael believes that those managers didn't know that he pissed on
Yeah, you
himself.
think they bought that fucking story?
That's called the mechanism.
They still refer to you as Piss Boy there.
Yeah, remember the time that kid pissed on himself and you told the story? Yeah, what are the odds that both of them told stories about pissing themselves?
Thomaston is exactly 10 minutes wide, and you worked exactly 10 minutes away from where you lived. I mean, you had to drive all the way across town to change, huh?
No, I actually had to call Mom.
No,
Because at the time I was driving.
that's even better.
So Mom had to get in the car with urine-soaked pants to get driven home.
Did you tell Mom what happened?
At the place in my life where I was able to come completely open, like honest with it, and I'm sure she could smell that it was urine. And I remember this story, but I'm not sure if I lied to her, if I just told her what really happened. At that point, I was pretty mortified.
Mason wants to know if all the Gallaghers have problems using the bathroom.
Well, we know that I have a pretty severe bladder problem, so that's 3.
Yeah,
I don't know about the older 2. We're gonna have to
after
find out.
talking to Michael some more, it probably all of it probably ventures back to your father.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and assume that our bladder issues are a direct reflection of, again, this term that we keep referencing, PTSD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we already did this, Pat.
We did.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, Michael, thanks for being on the show. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think I gotta say, all 3 Gallagher so far have wildly impressed me. You are the most unimpressive Gallagher I've met.
I could have told you that before we started recording.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that you are the runt of the family.
Yeah. I mean, I have like, Tony's the funniest, Tony's the sweetest. I don't know which one. I would say Michael's the hardest worker. Steven's probably the smartest.
Well, and he's clearly the most humble.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, Michael clearly is the classiest, you son of a bitch. I did not expect such class to come out of Michael today. Really got me. I also didn't expect him to tell a horrific story that's going to leave me with nightmares for the next week and a half, but that's fine.
Jeez, you learn how to let stuff go. Michael did. But I want to thank you, man. I had a lot of good time talking to you. This was definitely our most educational show by far. It's been fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
The last time we talked about COVID, we were reading statistics off of an internet website.
Yeah. Like we broke down like the percentage rate of what people were getting. That was a long time ago. It was like episode 6, I think.
It was definitely single digits.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So on our next episode, we're gonna do football reviews, kid slang, and all new if you would you, and read answers to the questions for the most outrageous holiday story. I also have some articles that I was telling you about that Erica had sent in.
Yeah,
that I think we're gonna do. They're pretty funny, so I'd like to get into those. Anything else, Matt? Oh, obviously, check us out, number9podcast.com. Go to the bottom of the page. Subscribe to the email list. You can donate to the show there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also, there's a link in the chat. You can subscribe. You can donate to the show with the link in the description. And make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel, following us on Facebook, Instagram, the Number 9 Podcast. Number 9 with Tommy Podcast, and Twitter at Number 9 Pod. Anything you want to add, Pat?
Michael, I love you.
Yeah,
Everyone
I love you
else,
too.
I say good day.
You guys have a good day too. Behave yourselves.
Have a good one. Thanks for being on the show, buddy.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. This was a real good time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was nice to meet you, by the way. I've only known Pat for like 15 years, and this is the first time I met you.
I'm going to go cry myself into a midday nap.
Well, hopefully, if the COVID restrictions lift, we're planning to be there in June, so we'll be able to maybe meet, person. So,
maybe we can get him and Tony on.
Oh my god!
You should get Steven here. We'll have Steven on too.
Well, the problem with either one of them, like if Michael travels, it's 4 times the cost because he's got 4 people traveling. Yeah. It's much easier to put me next to Michael than it is to put Michael next to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And Steven has 5, so.
Jeez. You guys reproduce like crazy. Thank God you're sterile, huh?
That's right.
All right. All right. So I'm going to end the YouTube stream now. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you on Wednesday.